On my way to my husband's will reading, a homeless man showed up with a warning, "Don't go there." The stranger glanced toward the courthouse entrance where I could see Michael's brother David pacing near the metal detectors. Even from 50 yards away, David looked confident. Too confident for someone about to honor his dead brother's wishes. Have you ever walked into a room knowing everyone had already decided your fate? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. The morning was gray and heavy when I drove into downtown St. Louis, Missouri, my chest tight with the weight of my husband's will reading. I had ironed my navy dress the night before, preparing myself for the polished cruelty of his family. But just as I stepped onto the courthouse steps, a ragged man with tangled hair and piercing eyes grabbed my wrist and whispered, "Don't go in there. They've erased you." The words sliced through me harder than the autumn wind. My first instinct was fear that he knew something I didn't, something dangerous. His voice was cracked but steady, and when he pointed toward the courthouse door, I felt the same chill I had when I found the last cold coffee cup my husband left behind on our porch before his sudden death. I tried to shake him off, but he slipped a folded piece of paper into my hand before disappearing into the traffic as quickly as he appeared. Inside was a photocopy of a different will, one with my name missing, replaced by a cousin I barely knew. My legs nearly gave out. I was supposed to be the spouse, the legal partner, the woman who stood by him through every late-night hospital shift. Yet here, in black and white, was proof I had been erased. The homeless man's words echoed louder, "They've erased you." In that moment, I realized this wasn't grief anymore, it was war, fought on paper, and I was already losing. We lived in Kansas City, Missouri, where my husband, Michael, had worked for nearly 20 years as a paramedic. We weren't wealthy, but we built our life brick by brick, a small craftsman house, savings for retirement, and a beat-up Chevy we refused to trade in because of all the road trips it carried us on. Michael's family, however, had always seen me as less than, not because of anything I had done, but because I came from a working-class family in Arkansas. They loved to remind me that I married up. When Michael died suddenly from a heart attack last winter, his mother and 2 brothers took control of everything. They arranged the funeral, handled the bank accounts, and whispered in corners while I sat numb with grief. For weeks, I ignored the odd details, the locked filing cabinet I couldn't find the key to, the phone calls I wasn't copied on, the attorney's clipped answers whenever I asked questions. Deep down, I believed love would speak for itself, that Michael's will would reflect the life we built together. But standing outside that courthouse, gripping the warning from a stranger, I realized his family had buried more than just Michael, they were trying to bury me too. The homeless man's grip was stronger than his appearance suggested. "Don't go in there," he whispered. "They've erased you." His fingers were dirty but his eyes were sharp. Too sharp for someone living on the streets. I tried to pull away, but he held firm, pressing that folded paper deeper into my palm. "Lady, I know you don't know me from Adam, but I've been watching this courthouse for 3 months. Your husband's family? They've been in and out of here more times than a revolving door." The autumn wind cut through my navy dress, the one I'd chosen because Michael always said it brought out my eyes. Now those same eyes were filling with tears I couldn't explain. "Who are you?" I managed to ask. "Someone who's seen this game before. Open the paper when you get somewhere safe. Don't let them see it. Have you ever felt like family saw you as an outsider? Like you had to prove you belonged even in your own marriage?" That's exactly how Michael's mother made me feel every Christmas dinner, every family gathering. She'd introduce me as Michael's wife, with the same tone you'd use for Michael's dentist, necessary, but temporary. The stranger glanced toward the courthouse entrance where I could see Michael's brother David pacing near the metal detectors. Even from 50 yards away, David looked confident. Too confident for someone about to honor his dead brother's wishes. Have you ever walked into a room knowing everyone had already decided your fate? I asked myself, but the homeless man answered. "Every day of my life, lady. But today's different. Today you've got proof." The paper in my hand felt heavier than it should have. Whatever was written on it had the power to change everything or destroy what little peace I had left. What would you do if a stranger handed you proof your own family betrayed you? Would you look immediately, or would you walk away and pretend the warning never happened? If family betrayal sounds familiar, don't wait. Subscribe, future you needs these warnings. I looked back at the stranger, but he was already melting into the morning crowd. Business people hurried past us like we were invisible, a grieving widow and a man society had forgotten. But he had seen something they all missed. He had seen me being erased. The courthouse door opened and David spotted me. He waved, that practiced smile spreading across his face. The same smile he'd used at Michael's funeral when he told everyone how grateful the family was for my support during this difficult time. I slipped the paper into my purse and walked toward the entrance. My heels clicked against the concrete steps with a rhythm that sounded like a countdown. Pause and remember that name, Rebecca. You'll see why it matters. The name on that stranger's paper wasn't mine. It was someone I'd met exactly once, at Michael's cousin Rebecca's wedding. A woman who lived in California and hadn't spoken to Michael in 5 years. They hadn't just erased me. They had replaced me. The house felt different when I returned, not empty, but violated. Someone had been inside. I stood in my own doorway for a full minute before stepping across the threshold. The mail on the kitchen counter was stacked too neatly. Michael always left it scattered like fallen leaves, but this pile looked organized. Deliberate. My coffee cup from that morning sat in the sink, but it was rinsed clean. I never rinsed dishes before washing them. Never. It was one of those small habits that drove Michael crazy, and now someone had fixed it. The spare key hook by the garage door was empty. I walked through our living room where Michael's paramedic schedule still hung on the refrigerator, held up by a magnet from our anniversary trip to Branson. Everything looked normal, but normal felt wrong. Like walking through a museum of your own life. The red light on the answering machine blinked. 3 messages. The first was from Jenny Martinez, Michael's old union representative. Call me back as soon as you get this. It's important. The second was a reminder about Michael's life insurance claim, still pending after 4 months. The third made my blood freeze. Mrs. Martinez, this is Patricia from the law offices of Coleman and Associates. We need to update our contact information for you. Please call at your earliest convenience to verify your current address and phone number. Coleman and Associates. I'd never heard that name before. The attorney handling Michael's will was supposed to be Robert Lynch from Lynch and Patterson. The same firm Michael's family had used for 20 years. Ever felt like your own home was watching you? Like invisible hands had touched everything you considered sacred? I replayed the message twice. Patricia's voice was professional but cold. Like she was reading from a script designed to sound helpful while gathering information. The timestamp showed 9:47 a.m. I'd been at the courthouse until 11 a.m. They knew exactly where I was and how long I'd be gone. I checked the locks on every door. All secure, but that meant nothing if they had a key. The spare key I couldn't find. My hands shook as I dialed Jenny's number. If someone was playing games with attorneys and keys and cleaned coffee cups, I needed an ally. Someone who knew Michael before his family started their cleanup operation. The phone rang 4 times before Jenny picked up. Thank God you called, she said without waiting for me to speak. We need to talk. Tonight. And not at your house. The voicemail timestamp, 9:47 a.m. I'd been at the courthouse until 11 o'clock. They knew exactly where I was. Michael's toolbox squeaked the same way it did when he was alive. Inside, wrapped in an oil-stained cloth, was everything they didn't want me to find. I hadn't touched his tools since the funeral. The garage still smelled like motor oil and the aftershave he wore on weekends when he worked on our old Chevy. But Jenny's cryptic phone call had sent me searching through spaces I'd been avoiding. Look for anything that doesn't fit the story they're telling, she'd said. Michael was careful about documentation. Union training. The toolbox sat on his workbench exactly where he'd left it. Heavy, red, with scratches from 20 years of emergency calls. I lifted the top tray expecting to find wrenches and screwdrivers. Instead, I found a manila envelope. My name was written across the front in Michael's handwriting. Not Mrs. Martinez, or to whom it may concern. Just Sarah. The name he whispered when he brought me coffee in bed every Sunday morning. Inside were 3 things that changed everything. First, a photocopy of a will. The real will. The one that left everything to me, his beloved wife and partner in all things. It was dated 6 months before he died, signed and witnessed properly. My hands shook as I read the personal note he'd added. Sarah built this life with me. She deserves to finish it without interference. Second, a handwritten letter addressed to me. If you're reading this, something happened and my family got involved. I know they never accepted you. I know they think the money should stay in the bloodline. Don't let them erase what we built together. Third, a business card for Patricia Wells, estate attorney, with a phone number I didn't recognize and a note in Michael's writing. Call if family causes trouble. She knows the whole story. Who's Jenny? Write down that name, she becomes crucial. Wait. I'd written down the wrong name. It wasn't Jenny who had the business card. It was Patricia Wells. But Jenny Martinez was Michael's union rep, and she was the one who told me to search for documents. My heart hammered as I read Michael's letter again. He'd known. Somehow, he'd known his family would try to cut me out. Had he been sick longer than he told me? Had they been pressuring him before he died? The letter continued, I've made arrangements with Patricia Wells to handle things if the family tries their usual games. The original will is filed with her office. Trust her, not Lynch and Patterson. Lynch and Patterson. That was the firm handling the current will reading. The firm Michael's family had chosen. But Michael had secretly worked with someone else. I sank onto his work stool, surrounded by the tools he'd used to fix everything that broke in our lives. Except he couldn't fix this. He could only leave me clues and hope I was smart enough to follow them. At the bottom of his letter, one line in Michael's shaky handwriting, if something happens, trust no one but Patricia Wells. She has copies of everything. The business card felt warm in my palm. Patricia Wells. Not Patricia from Coleman and Associates who'd left the mysterious voicemail. This was a different Patricia entirely. Michael had been planning for war long before I knew there was a battle to fight. Jenny Martinez looked exactly like someone who'd spent 30 years fighting insurance companies. Her handshake was firm, her smile was tired, and her eyes missed nothing. We met at a diner 20 miles outside Kansas City, far enough from Michael's old routes that we wouldn't accidentally run into his family or their friends. Jenny had chosen a corner booth where she could watch both the entrance and the parking lot. You found something, she said before I even sat down. I can tell by the way you're carrying your purse. Clutching it like it contains gold. I pulled out Michael's letter and the real will. Jenny put on reading glasses and spread the documents across the sticky table like evidence in a criminal trial. Son of a bitch, she whispered after reading for 2 minutes. He knew they'd try this. Try what, exactly? The old shell game. Make the real will disappear, substitute a fake one, and pretend they're just following legal procedures. Jenny tapped the business card. Patricia Wells is good people. She handled my own estate planning after my husband died. The diner coffee was terrible, but I wrapped my hands around the warm cup anyway. How long have you known about Michael's family problems? Years. They never liked that he married outside their social circle. Blue-collar girl from Arkansas? They saw you as temporary. Jenny's voice carried the weight of someone who'd witnessed too many workplace injustices. Michael came to me about 18 months ago, asking about legal protections for spouses in inheritance disputes. Miss one legal warning sign, pay for years. Subscribe to catch them early. He was planning for this? Smart man. He'd watched them pressure his cousin Rebecca into signing away her inheritance rights when her mother died. They convinced her the family business was struggling and she should do the right thing for everyone. Rebecca. The name from the fake will. The cousin I'd met once at a wedding. They used Rebecca's name on the fake will? Jenny nodded grimly. Classic move. Use someone who legally could inherit but doesn't know what's happening. By the time Rebecca finds out they forged her signature, the estate will be distributed and she'll be too embarrassed to make waves. I thought about Rebecca, quiet, soft-spoken, living in California with 2 young kids. She probably had no idea her name was being used to steal my husband's legacy. What do we do? Jenny pulled out her phone and dialed Patricia Wells' number. We stop playing defense and start fighting back. The phone rang twice before a professional voice answered. Wells Law Office, Patricia speaking. Patricia, it's Jenny Martinez. I'm here with Sarah Martinez, Michael's widow. She found his package. A pause. Then, thank God. Can you both come in tomorrow morning? We have work to do. Jenny's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging or face consequences. Someone was watching. How far would you go to uncover the truth? Dr. Ramesh remembered Michael's last appointment clearly. He seemed worried about something beyond his health. Kept asking about witness requirements for legal documents. I sat across from the doctor who'd treated Michael for 15 years, watching him flip through appointment notes with the careful precision of someone used to delivering bad news. Patricia Wells had suggested I talk to anyone who'd seen Michael in his final months. Your husband came in 6 weeks before he passed, Dr. Ramesh said, adjusting his glasses. His blood pressure was elevated, but not from physical causes. Stress. He kept asking strange questions. What kind of questions? Whether medical professionals could serve as witnesses for legal documents. Whether there were rules about family members pressuring patients about estate planning. The doctor paused, studying my face. He seemed afraid of something. The clinic smelled like disinfectant and worry. The same smell that clung to Michael's uniform after difficult calls. But this wasn't about saving someone else's life. This was about protecting mine. Did he mention his family specifically? Dr. Ramesh nodded slowly. He said his family had been asking a lot of questions about his health. Whether he was thinking clearly about financial decisions. Whether stress from work was affecting his judgment. My stomach dropped. They'd been building a case for incompetence. Making it seem like Michael wasn't capable of making his own choices about our life together. He asked me to document our conversation, the doctor continued. Said he might need medical testimony about his mental state. I thought it was odd, but Michael was always thorough about paperwork. He handed me a copy of the appointment notes. Michael's concerns were written in clinical detail. Patient reports family pressure regarding estate decisions. Patient demonstrates clear cognitive function and decision-making capacity. No signs of mental impairment or coercion susceptibility. He knew they'd come after him. What does that tell you about his family? Doctor, in your professional opinion, was Michael capable of making legal decisions right up until he died? Absolutely. His mind was sharp as ever. If anything, the family pressure had made him more focused on protecting what mattered to him. Dr. Ramesh closed the file. He mentioned you specifically. Said you were the only person who'd never asked him to be anyone other than who he was. I fought back tears. Even facing his family's manipulation, Michael had been thinking about protecting me. There's one more thing, the doctor said. He asked me to keep these notes in a separate file. Said if anything happened to him, someone might come asking questions about his mental state. The appointment notes included one detail that made my blood freeze. Patient expressed fear of family retaliation if legal protections discovered. He hadn't just been planning for their greed. He'd been planning for their revenge. This isn't amateur hour, estate attorney Patricia Wells said, spreading the documents across her desk. This is systematic erasure, and it's illegal. Her office was nothing like the fancy law firms Michael's family preferred. No mahogany paneling or leather chairs. Just clean surfaces, organized files, and a woman who'd built her reputation on fighting for people who couldn't afford to lose. Patricia examined Michael's hidden will with a magnifying glass, checking signatures and dates like a detective studying evidence. Jenny sat beside me, taking notes in a small pad she'd pulled from her purse. They made 3 critical mistakes, Patricia said. First, they backdated signatures on the fake will. The ink analysis will prove that. Second, they used witnesses who weren't present when the document was allegedly signed. Third, they failed to properly notify you of the probate proceedings. What does that mean for me? It means we can challenge everything they've done and win. Patricia's voice carried the confidence of someone who'd fought these battles before. But we need to move fast. They're probably planning to rush through probate before you can object. Legal predators count on your silence. Subscribe to learn their tactics. She pulled out a thick file labeled Martinez Estate, Protective Measures. Michael came to me 8 months ago. He was worried about his family's increased interest in his finances after a minor health scare. Nothing serious, but they started asking questions about life insurance, retirement accounts, property values. He never told me about meeting with you. He didn't want you to worry unless it became necessary. Smart man. He knew that knowledge of these preparations might put you in danger from his family. Patricia opened the file to reveal photocopies of everything: bank statements, insurance policies, property deeds, even photos of our home and belongings. Michael documented your entire financial life together. Joint accounts, shared investments, home improvements you'd made with your own money. He was building a case for your rightful inheritance. Jenny leaned forward. What about the timing? Can they claim he wasn't thinking straight when he made these preparations? That's where Dr. Ramesh's notes become crucial. Medical testimony that Michael was competent and acting under his own free will. Patricia smiled grimly. Plus, I have recordings. Recordings? Michael's sessions with me. He insisted we record everything so there would be no question about his intentions. Listen to this. She pressed play on a small digital recorder. Michael's voice filled the room, strong and clear. I want to be absolutely certain that if something happens to me, my wife Sarah receives everything we built together. My family has never accepted her, and I know they'll try to cut her out. She's the best thing that ever happened to me, and she deserves to live comfortably without their interference. Hearing his voice again hit me like a punch to the chest. He sounded so alive, so determined to protect me even from beyond the grave. There are 4 hours of recordings, Patricia said gently. All clearly establishing his mental competence and his specific wishes about inheritance. What happens next? We file an emergency motion to halt all probate proceedings. Then we demand forensic analysis of the fake will and launch a full investigation into document tampering. Patricia's tone grew harder. They picked the wrong widow to mess with. She handed me a thick packet of legal papers. Sign these. We're going to war. As I signed document after document, Patricia's phone rang. She answered on speaker. Wells Law Office. Ms. Wells, this is David Martinez. I think there's been some confusion about my brother's estate. Perhaps we should meet to discuss things privately. Patricia looked directly at me and smiled. Mr. Martinez, there's no confusion on our end. We'll see you in court. The judge's gavel fell once. Emergency preservation order granted. I didn't celebrate, I exhaled for the first time in weeks. Between the tax documents and insurance papers, I found Michael's real will, the one that called me his beloved partner and sole heir. Patricia had told me to search our home one more time before the preservation order took effect. Look for anything personal, she'd said. Something with emotional value that they might not think to hide. I found it tucked inside our photo album from our 10th anniversary trip to Colorado. The will was folded carefully between pictures of us hiking mountain trails, laughing at campfires, planning a future we thought we had decades to enjoy. This wasn't a legal document written by attorneys. This was Michael's heart on paper. To my beloved wife Sarah, you made every day of my life better just by being in it. You deserve to live without worry, without struggle, without anyone telling you that you don't belong. Everything we built together belongs to you, because you helped build every piece of it." I sat on our bedroom floor, surrounded by photos and memories, reading words that felt like Michael was speaking directly to me. His handwriting was careful and deliberate, like he'd taken time to choose every phrase. "The house we painted room by room, staying up until midnight to finish the kitchen because you were so excited about the new color. The savings account we fed dollar by dollar, dreaming about retirement trips we'd take together. The life insurance policy I bought thinking about your security, not my family's greed. 3 days. What changed in those final 72 hours? The will was dated exactly 3 days before Michael died. But there was something else, margin notes in different ink, added later. Family called again today. Mom asking about provisions for the bloodline. David wanting to know about life insurance beneficiaries. They're circling like vultures, and I'm not even dead yet. Another note, written in shakier handwriting, called Patricia. Told her to implement Plan B if anything happens. Sarah doesn't know about the family pressure. Don't want her to worry unless necessary. Plan B. He'd been preparing for this exact scenario. The final note was dated the day before he died. Chest pains at work today. Probably nothing, but called Patricia to confirm all protections are in place. If I don't make it, Sarah will need every advantage against my family's lawyers. I pressed the will against my chest and cried for the man who'd spent his last days not thinking about himself, but about protecting me from people who were supposed to love us both. The original will named me as executor, not his brother David. It specified that all assets would transfer to me immediately, with no waiting periods or family oversight. It even included a clause about our pets, making sure I could keep Michael's old dog Rex without interference. But the most important part was a handwritten addition at the bottom. Sarah gave up her career to support mine. She earned every dollar in our accounts through sacrifice and partnership. Anyone who contests this will is stealing not just from her, but from the woman who made my life worth living. The will was dated 3 days before Michael died. Someone had been planning this replacement for months. Somebody had known Michael was going to die and had prepared to steal his legacy before his body was even cold. The judge's gavel fell once. Emergency preservation order granted. I didn't celebrate, I exhaled for the first time in weeks. Patricia squeezed my hand as we sat in the courthouse gallery. Across the aisle, David Martinez and his attorney looked like they'd been slapped. The confident smirk David had worn during Michael's funeral was nowhere to be found. All assets in the Michael Martinez estate are hereby frozen pending investigation into allegations of document tampering and improper probate procedures, the judge continued. No distributions will be made until this court determines the validity of competing claims. The family's attorney, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit, stood up slowly. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. The will in question has been properly authenticated in Mr. Coleman, your client failed to notify the deceased spouse of probate proceedings as required by law. That alone is grounds for halting distribution. The judge's voice was ice-cold. Motion granted. Victory achieved, but at what cost? What comes next? As we walked out of the courthouse, I could feel David's eyes burning into my back. At Michael's funeral, he'd put his arm around me and promised to take care of everything. Now he knew I wasn't going to quietly disappear. Patricia walked beside me with the confidence of someone used to winning fights others had given up on. This is just round 1, she warned. They'll regroup and come back harder. What should I expect? Pressure. They'll try to make you feel guilty for challenging family decisions. They might offer you a settlement to make this go away quietly. Patricia stopped at the courthouse steps. They're also going to try to destroy your reputation. Jenny was waiting for us by the parking meter, holding an envelope. This came to my office an hour ago, she said, handing it to me. The return address was elegant and expensive, Martinez Family Foundation. Inside was an invitation printed on heavy cardstock. You are cordially invited to attend a memorial celebration honoring the life and legacy of Michael David Martinez. The event will be held at the Country Club of Kansas City, with proceeds benefiting the Paramedic Scholarship Fund established in his name. The invitation was signed by Michael's mother and dated for next weekend. At the bottom, in small print, reception sponsored by the Martinez family in partnership with Lynch and Patterson law firm. A tribute, curated by the person who erased me. They're throwing a party, I said. No, Patricia corrected. They're staging a performance. They want the community to see them as grieving family members carrying on Michael's legacy while you look like the greedy outsider trying to steal from charity. As we left the courthouse, Jenny grabbed my arm. They'll retaliate now. Are you ready for war? They labeled the props favorites. I'd bought one of them. My name wasn't on the card. The Country Club of Kansas City was exactly the kind of place Michael had hated, all polished wood and whispered conversations about property values. But his family had chosen it for his memorial service, and I needed to see what story they were telling about his life. I wore my black dress and Michael's wedding ring on a chain around my neck. If they wanted to play the grieving family, I'd remind everyone who'd actually lost a husband. The display tables were arranged like a museum exhibit, Michael's dedication to service, a life of family values, commitment to community. Each section had photos, awards, and personal items that told the story they wanted people to remember. But I recognized half the items on display. The leather journal he'd kept in our kitchen for grocery lists and weekend plans. The coffee mug I'd given him for his 40th birthday. The photo of him receiving his 20-year service award, where I'd been cropped out of the original image. Public humiliation hits different. Subscribe, don't face it alone. Michael's mother, Eleanor, moved through the crowd like a queen accepting condolences. She wore pearls and a practiced expression of dignified grief. When she saw me, her smile never wavered, but her eyes turned to ice. Sarah, dear, how thoughtful of you to come, she said loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Michael would have appreciated your support for the scholarship fund. Support for the scholarship fund. As if I were a family friend making a donation, not the wife who'd lived with him for 12 years. I watched Eleanor work the room, accepting sympathy and praise for keeping Michael's memory alive. She introduced David as the family spokesman for the foundation and Michael's younger brother Tony as our financial coordinator. No one mentioned me. I stayed near the edges, listening to conversations that revealed how completely they'd rewritten history. Michael was remembered as a dedicated son and brother who'd never forgotten his roots. People spoke about his commitment to family values and his desire to give back to the community that raised him. Everything they said was true, but incomplete. Like describing a house by only mentioning the foundation while ignoring the rooms where people actually lived. Then I heard something that made my blood freeze. David was talking to the scholarship committee near the back of the room. I moved closer, pretending to study a photo display while straining to catch their words. The estate situation is complicated right now, David was saying. But we're confident everything will be resolved quickly. Michael's intentions were very clear about supporting causes that mattered to him. What about his wife? Asked a woman I didn't recognize. Shouldn't she be involved in these decisions? David's voice dropped, but I caught the key phrase. Unfortunately, grief affects people differently. Some people become difficult about letting go. Direct threat delivered. How would you respond? I'd been painted as the problem. The difficult widow who couldn't accept her husband's charitable intentions. As I walked toward the exit, trying to maintain my dignity while fury burned in my chest, I passed the silent auction table. One item stopped me cold, Michael's paramedic badge, donated by the Martinez family for charity bidding. The badge I'd planned to keep forever. The symbol of the work that had defined his life and our marriage. They'd turned it into auction entertainment. During the reception, Michael's brother cornered me. Drop the legal nonsense, or we'll destroy what's left of your reputation. The date on that phrase synced with a hospital week. 7:43 p.m., Sunday, the paralegal read. Signature witnessed. No principal present. Her name was Lisa Chen, and she'd worked at Lynch and Patterson for 3 years. We met at a coffee shop in a strip mall 20 miles from downtown, far from the fancy offices where Michael's fake will had been created. Lisa's hands shook as she opened a manila folder. I shouldn't be doing this. I could lose my job, maybe face legal action. Then why are you here? Because what they did to you isn't right. Lisa pulled out a stack of photocopies. I'd been watching this case since Mr. Coleman first met with the Martinez family. Something felt wrong from the beginning. She spread the documents across our small table like evidence at a crime scene. Time logs, building access records, witness statements that didn't match the official story. This is the real timeline, Lisa said, pointing to a computer printout. The will everyone thinks is legitimate? It was supposedly signed and witnessed on Sunday, March 15th, at 7:43 p.m. What's wrong with that? The building was closed. Security logs show no entry after 6 p.m. that day. Lisa's voice was barely above a whisper. But the computer records show document creation at 7:43 p.m. Is this enough to challenge the filings? I studied the access logs. Every name, every timestamp, every entry and exit recorded by the building's security system. On March 15th, the day Michael supposedly signed his will, nobody had entered the law firm after 6 p.m. Who were the witnesses listed on the will? Lisa checked her notes. Rebecca Martinez from California, and Thomas Mitchell, supposedly a family friend. I know Rebecca. She's Michael's cousin. But I've never heard of Thomas Mitchell. Neither had anyone else at the firm. Mr. Coleman claimed he was an old family friend, but when I tried to verify his contact information for follow-up, the address didn't exist. Lisa pulled out another document, a staff scheduling chart. Here's what really happened. Mr. Coleman worked late that Sunday, but he was alone. No witnesses, no client meeting. Just him and his computer, creating a document that would never hold up under real scrutiny. The evidence was devastating. Computer records proving the will was created when the building was empty. Security logs showing Coleman had been alone. Witness information that couldn't be verified. There's more, Lisa said. She handed me a printout of email exchanges between Coleman and David Martinez. They called it Project Clean Slate. The emails were clinical in their cruelty. David discussing elimination of complications and streamlined distribution. Coleman responding with legal strategies for minimizing spousal interference and expedited probate processing. They'd reduced my 12-year marriage to a complication that needed elimination. The final email was sent the day before your husband died, Lisa said quietly. Mr. Coleman wrote, all preparations complete. Ready to implement upon confirmation. Upon confirmation. They'd been waiting for Michael to die so they could steal his legacy. Why are you risking your job to help me? Lisa looked me directly in the eyes. Because my grandmother went through something similar when my grandfather died. His sons convinced her to sign away her rights to the family business. She lived in poverty for the rest of her life while they got rich. Access logs, building closed. Entry, never. Someone had created Michael's fake will in an empty office building, using witnesses who didn't exist, at a time when nobody else was there to see the crime being committed. Their lawyer's demand letter was 3 pages of threats. My response was 1 paragraph of facts. The letter arrived on expensive letterhead, delivered by courier to make sure I understood how serious they were. Coleman's language was designed to intimidate, cease and desist all frivolous legal actions, potential liability for defamation, consequences of continued harassment of grieving family members. 3 pages of legal bluster that boiled down to one message: back off or we'll destroy you. I read it twice, then handed it to Patricia. She skimmed the threats and laughed, actually laughed, before pulling out her laptop. Watch this, she said, typing rapidly. Her response was surgical in its precision. Dear Mr. Coleman, your client's alleged will was created in an empty office building using non-existent witnesses. Building security logs, computer timestamps, and staff schedules prove document fabrication. Cease all probate proceedings immediately or face criminal referral for document fraud. We have recordings, witnesses, and physical evidence. Your move. 68 words that cut through 3 pages of intimidation like a knife through paper. They count on you backing down. Subscribe, learn to fight smart. That's it? I asked. Sometimes the best response to a roar is a whisper that carries more weight. Patricia hit send and leaned back in her chair. Legal bullies count on fear. When you respond with facts instead of emotion, they realize they're not dealing with someone they can push around. Within 2 hours, my phone started ringing. The first call was from Eleanor, Michael's mother. Her voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "Sarah, this has gone far enough. You're tearing the family apart over money. I'm protecting what Michael wanted. Michael wanted his family taken care of. He wouldn't want this fighting." The second call came from David. "No pleasantries this time. You're making a mistake. We have resources you can't imagine. Legal teams, private investigators, people who can make your life very difficult. Are you threatening me? I'm offering you one last chance to settle this quietly. Take the settlement we discussed, or we go nuclear. Ever been told to back down, and didn't?" The third call was from Tony, Michael's youngest brother. His voice was different, uncertain, almost apologetic. "Sarah, I need you to know this wasn't my idea. David and Mom, they convinced me you'd try to take everything and leave the family with nothing. Tony, I never wanted to take anything from you. I just wanted what Michael left for me." I saw the recording Patricia played for the judge. Michael's voice, "He really loved you, didn't he?" I started crying. After weeks of fighting and threats and legal battles, hearing someone from Michael's family acknowledge what we'd meant to each other broke something open inside me. "He was the best thing that ever happened to me," I whispered. "Mom's calling an emergency family meeting tomorrow. She wants to discuss terms." "What kind of terms?" "The kind where everyone walks away with something and nobody goes to jail." Patricia's phone buzzed with an email from Coleman's office. The subject line read, "Request for settlement conference. Negotiation or trap? What's your read?" But there was an attachment that made Patricia's eyebrows shoot up. A motion to withdraw from representing the Martinez family, citing irreconcilable differences regarding case strategy. 24 hours after my response, Michael's mother called, "We need to talk." Coleman was abandoning ship. Even he knew they couldn't win a fight against facts. She didn't apologize. She explained. "We thought you'd remarry quickly and forget him. The money should stay in the bloodline." Eleanor Martinez sat across from me in Patricia's conference room like she was discussing the weather instead of admitting to fraud. Her composure was terrifying, no shame, no regret, just cold calculation about what had seemed like smart family planning. "Michael wasn't even cold in the ground when you started planning this," I said. "We started planning this when he married you." Eleanor's voice was matter-of-fact. "You were never going to be permanent. Pretty girls like you don't stay with paramedics when something better comes along." David sat beside his mother, nodding like she was sharing financial wisdom instead of confessing to stealing my life. "We protected the family assets. That's what responsible families do." By committing fraud? By making sure Michael's hard work didn't disappear with some widow who'd probably blow everything on a new husband within 2 years. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. They'd reduced my 12-year marriage to a temporary inconvenience that needed managing. Patricia had been silent, taking notes, letting them talk themselves into deeper legal trouble. But when Eleanor finished her explanation, Patricia leaned forward with the expression of someone about to deliver a killing blow. "Mrs. Martinez, are you aware that document fraud is a felony in Missouri? This is family business, not criminal court. Creating false legal documents, forging signatures, filing fraudulent probate claims, these are serious crimes. Your son could face 5 to 7 years in prison." For the first time, Eleanor's composure cracked. "Prison? The FBI investigates estate fraud involving amounts over $250,000. Your husband's estate qualifies. Patricia opened a thick file. We have computer forensics showing when the fake will was created. Security footage proving the building was empty. Witness testimony about the conspiracy. Phone records connecting all the participants. David's face had gone pale. We were protecting family interests. You were committing multiple felonies while stealing from a widow. Patricia's voice was ice cold. The only question now is whether you want to resolve this civilly or wait for criminal charges. Ultimatum delivered. What would your choice be? Eleanor looked older suddenly, like the weight of her choices had finally caught up with her. What do you want? Full recognition of Michael's actual will. Complete transfer of all assets to Sarah as he intended. Public acknowledgement that your previous claims were based on fraudulent documents. And if we agree? No criminal referral. No public scandal. You walk away and leave Sarah alone to grieve her husband in peace. The room was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning. Eleanor stared at her hands, probably calculating the cost of prison sentences against the cost of admitting defeat. There's one more thing, I said quietly. Everyone looked at me. I want Michael's paramedic badge back. The one you put up for auction at the memorial service. It belongs with me, not on some stranger's wall. Eleanor nodded slowly. Fine. And I want the truth about why you hated me so much. She looked directly at me for the first time since we'd sat down. Because he chose you over us. Every holiday, every family decision, every time we needed him to remember where he came from. He chose you. A girl from Arkansas with no family money, no connections, no understanding of what it means to preserve a legacy. I understood what it meant to love him. Love doesn't pay for your children's education or maintain family property or ensure the Martinez name means something in this community. Choose, she said. A small settlement now, or we'll make this public and destroy your standing in this community. But her threats sounded hollow now. Everyone in that room knew who held the real power. I walked into the probate hearing knowing every eye would judge me. I wore Michael's paramedic badge on my lapel, and told the truth. The courtroom was packed. Word had spread through Kansas City's tight-knit emergency services community that something big was happening with Michael Martinez's estate. Paramedics, firefighters, dispatchers, and hospital staff filled the gallery. I'd expected Eleanor and David to fight until the bitter end, but they'd surprised everyone by agreeing to a settlement conference right before the hearing. Their new attorney, Coleman, had officially withdrawn, spent 20 minutes explaining their desire to honor Michael's true wishes and their commitment to family healing. Legal language that meant, we got caught and we're trying to save face. Judge Patricia Hernandez had seen enough estate disputes to recognize theater when it walked into her courtroom. She listened to the attorney's carefully worded agreement, then looked directly at me. Mrs. Martinez, this settlement recognizes you as your husband's sole heir and primary beneficiary. Are you satisfied with these terms? Standing up publicly changes everything. Subscribe for courage when you need it. I stood slowly, feeling the weight of Michael's badge against my chest. Your Honor, I want to say something about my husband. The judge nodded. Go ahead. Michael spent 20 years running toward danger so other people could go home safely to their families. He never asked for recognition or special treatment. He just did his job with honor and came home to me every night. I looked around the courtroom at the faces of people who'd worked alongside Michael, who'd trusted him with their lives and their community's safety. His family tried to erase me from his life because they thought I wasn't good enough for their bloodline. They forged legal documents, created fake witnesses, and committed fraud to steal what he wanted me to have. Eleanor sat rigid in the front row, her face a mask of controlled humiliation. But Michael knew this might happen. He spent his final months preparing evidence to protect me from the people who were supposed to love us both. Even facing death, he was still trying to save someone. This time, he was saving me. The courtroom was silent except for the soft sound of people crying. I'm not asking for revenge. I'm asking for justice. Michael's wishes should be honored, not because I'm his widow, but because he was a good man who deserved better from his own family. Judge Hernandez consulted her notes. Mr. Coleman's office has submitted a motion to withdraw all previous probate filings based on newly discovered document irregularities. The court accepts this motion and recognizes the validity of the original will dated 8 months before Mr. Martinez's death. She looked around the courtroom. Let this serve as a reminder that estate fraud is a serious crime with serious consequences. The integrity of our legal system depends on honest documentation of people's final wishes. The gavel fell with a sound like thunder. The original will stands. Case dismissed. Justice served, but what about healing? As people filed out of the courtroom, dozens of Michael's co-workers stopped to shake my hand or offer quiet words of support. They'd known the real Michael. Not the version his family had tried to create, but the man who'd lived his values every day. Eleanor and David left through a side door without speaking to anyone. 20 minutes of legal language had reduced their months of scheming to a footnote in probate records. But I'd won something more valuable than money. I'd won the right to grieve my husband without having to fight for permission to remember our life together. The house felt like mine again. I hung Michael's paramedic photo back on the mantel where it belonged. Coming home after the court victory was like stepping back into my own life. For months, I'd felt like a stranger in the house Michael and I had built together. Every room had been touched by doubt, every corner shadowed by the fear that I might lose everything we'd created. Now the shadows were gone. I walked through rooms that remembered us. The kitchen where Michael made pancakes every Sunday morning, the living room where we'd watched old movies and planned retirement trips, the bedroom where I'd held him during thunderstorms because he was afraid of lightning. The filing cabinet that had been locked since his death was open now. Patricia had found the key in Michael's work locker, another piece of evidence that his family had been controlling access to our own financial records. Inside were documents that told the story of our life together, mortgage papers with both our names, insurance policies naming me as beneficiary, investment accounts we'd built dollar by dollar over 12 years of marriage. But there was something else. A sealed envelope with my name written in Michael's careful handwriting. Your story matters too. Subscribe, someone needs to hear it. Inside was a letter I'd never seen before. Sarah, if you're reading this, something happened to me and my family got involved. I'm sorry. I know they never made you feel welcome, and I should have stood up to them more often. I was always caught between loving you and keeping peace with them. But I need you to know something, choosing you was the best decision I ever made. You made me better than I was. You made our little house feel like a palace. You made every day worth living. Don't let them make you feel small. You're stronger than you know, and you deserve every happiness we plan together. Use the money to build something beautiful. Travel like we always talked about. Maybe help other people who need someone in their corner. I love you more than words can say. Live boldly for both of us. I cried until there were no tears left. Not from sadness this time, but from the overwhelming relief of being seen and loved so completely by someone who'd known every part of my heart. The next morning, I called Jenny Martinez. How do you feel about starting a nonprofit? I asked. What kind of nonprofit? Legal aid for people facing family financial abuse. Widows whose families try to cheat them. Adult children cut out of wills by vindictive parents. People who need someone to fight for them when their own families won't. Jenny was quiet for a moment. You want to turn this nightmare into something that helps other people? Michael always said the best way to heal from pain was to help someone else avoid it. What would you call it? I looked at Michael's paramedic badge, now sitting in a place of honor on my desk. The Michael Martinez Legal Defense Fund. Emergency legal services for people who can't afford to lose. In Michael's toolbox, I found one more note: you're stronger than you know. Use that strength to help others. His final message: what would you do with that directive? 6 months later, I opened the doors to the Michael Martinez Legal Aid Clinic. The first client was a widow whose family had tried to erase her too. Her name was Maria Santos, and she sat in my office clutching a folder full of documents that told a story I knew too well. Her husband had died in a construction accident, leaving behind a modest house and savings account. Within weeks, his brothers had produced a will that cut Maria out completely. They say I was never really family because we didn't have children, Maria explained through tears. They say the money should go to his nephews who will carry on the family name. I handed her a tissue and opened my own file, the one Patricia Wells had helped me create as a template for cases exactly like this. Maria, let me tell you what we're going to do. The clinic operated out of 2 rooms above a bakery in the part of Kansas City where working people could afford the rent. We kept overhead low so we could help more families. Jenny Martinez had left her union job to become our client advocate. Patricia Wells donated 10 hours a week of legal expertise. Our first year, we helped 43 families facing estate fraud, elder abuse, and family financial manipulation. Widows, adult children, elderly parents, all people whose own families had tried to erase them from their rightful inheritances. We won 38 cases. The 5 we lost taught us valuable lessons about evidence preservation and legal strategy. Every loss made us better advocates for the next family that walked through our doors. The clinic's success caught the attention of other attorneys who specialized in estate law. They began referring clients who couldn't afford private legal fees but had legitimate claims against family members who'd committed fraud. What strength are you hiding from yourself? Share below. Your story might save someone. 1 year after opening, we received an unexpected donation. The check was signed by Tony Martinez, Michael's youngest brother. His note was simple: Michael would be proud of what you've built. This is what family should look like. People who protect each other instead of preying on each other. I framed the check instead of cashing it. Some gestures matter more than money. Every morning, I unlocked the clinic doors knowing that someone would walk in carrying the same fear and confusion I'd felt outside the courthouse. The difference was that now they wouldn't face their fight alone. Michael's paramedic badge sits on my desk next to photos of families we've helped. Emergency responders rush toward danger to save lives. That's exactly what we do, rush toward legal danger to save families from people who should love them. Every client teaches me something new about survival. Michael was right, I am stronger than I knew. And now, I help others discover their strength too. The homeless man who warned me outside the courthouse was never found. Sometimes I wonder if he was real or if grief and fear had created him in my mind. But his words still echo: they've erased you. Not anymore. Now I help write other people back into their own stories.